You're listening to the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast, brought to you by BuildTurbines.com. Learn, train, and be a part of the clean energy revolution. Visit BuildTurbines.com today. Now here's your hosts, Alan Hall, Joel Saxum, Phil Totaro, and Rosemary Barnes.
Welcome to the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. I'm Alan Hall, and I'm joined today by Phil Totaro and Joel Saxum. Rosemary Barnes is over in Sweden. And Rosemary's going to miss out on a very active week in renewable energy, at least in the United States. We should probably start with American Clean Power, which, as we are recording, just finished today. It was in Phoenix, Arizona. Things I've seen online, Joel, were that they were expecting around 10,000 people to attend that event. But watching LinkedIn, and I did not attend it this year, unfortunately, or fortunately, it's my daughter's graduation, so I wanted to be there. But it looked like the hallways were pretty empty, which was a little shocking.
Yeah, so Alan, I want to preface what you said there by changing ACP was in Phoenix to ACP was in 106 degrees Phoenix today. It was a little bit toasty walking around in the suit jacket, but of course everybody had theirs on. But no, you're 100% correct. I was there all week, of course. WeatherGuard brand there, talking lightning with everybody and strike tape. And we had the Uptime Wind Energy banner. We talked to a ton of podcast fans, which was really cool. So the hallways were, Tuesday morning was great. Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday, it just got slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And there was some kind of logistical things there too. This trade show was oddly on two different floors that were separated by 4 escalator sets, I think. Like it was a maze to get up to the other thing. Yeah, it was pretty wild in that respect. And you saw some of the same players that you always see at these trade shows, right? But there was quite a few new ones walking around, doing a little tour day exhibition floor. A lot of different new companies that I wasn't used to seeing in the solar space. Some software, a lot of little AI software things that you've been hearing about as well. Battery storage, quite a few battery storage companies, and that battery storage supply chain starting to spread out. You had some battery safety companies and stuff like that, which was great to see. I know I talked to some of our insurance friends, and they were bouncing around talking with all the battery storage people and the solar people and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it wasn't very heavily wind as it has been in the past, which we're usually used to. Another factor to walk the show floor was $1,600. So that deters quite a people. And when we had talked before we go to the show, of course, we want to connect with our clients, connect with colleagues, connect with old friends, and you started sending out these emails, and there wasn't a whole lot of asset owners and operators coming as we usually see, and it showed on the show floor. I didn't talk to that many asset owners and asset operators as we usually do. I'm talking probably a quarter of the traffic that we're used to from those people.
Is that just because the operators are trying to pull back on the travel budgets, or was it more about just the state of the industry at the minute, or because of the time of year and where it was, the people that want to travel to Phoenix? What was the feeling there?
I think it was a bit of all the above. OMS, the other ACP event, the operations and maintenance, which is where a lot of our focus is on the commercial side. That was a good event. That was a well-attended event. Nashville this year, quite a few asset owners and operators there. So I think that they used their budget on that one a little bit more this year than this. Of course, you're in Phoenix, which is kind of an odd place. It's button up against Memorial Weekend, which is graduations, right, Alan? So it's kind of not an awesome time of the year to be putting something like this on, in my opinion, at least.
At least we're going to do it in Houston next year, when it's going to be in June and even hotter.
Yeah, it's first week of June next year for ACP in Houston. But in Houston, if you think about it this way too, there's quite a few wind companies there. There's ISPs there. There is operators there. Dallas isn't far down the road. That's got a bunch of ISPs and operators. Same thing with Austin. RWE, EDPR, EDF, Orsted. There's a bunch of players over in that area. So I would expect that one next year to be more well attended because travel budgets, you can hop in a car and drive over there.
While you were in Phoenix, the U.S. House passed a budget bill that was approved this morning as we're recording that would effectively end the clean energy production tax credits and the quote unquote boom in the United States that were spurred on by the IRA bill. And for the most part, now there's still a lot of discussion about this, so none of this is hard facts yet. And it has to go to the Senate, so there's going to be changes made and some bartering back and forth. But some key things here: the production tax credit gets shortened if you don't have projects started roughly 60 days after the enactment of this bill. You're not going to account for anything, so you got to hurry up and start digging. It eliminates a big piece, which is the tax transfer. So when you get these production tax credits, you could sell them, and all the tax credits could be transferred, and you could get that cash up front. The bill changes all that. So you would have to get a tax equity partner up front, which generally is a bank, and that can be hard to go do in today's world. So it's making it much harder for renewable projects to be developed if this bill were to be signed by the president, which who knows where it's going to be a couple of weeks from now. Now, Phil, how big is the tax transferability piece of that? Because the discussion in the renewable crowd is like, that's probably the most important piece.
It is setting aside the fact that this is going to obviously have a big impact on greenfield project development. The complete removal of any tax transferability for PTC credits is a bit problematic in that not everybody was taking advantage of it because it was a relatively new thing enacted through the Inflation Reduction Act in the first place. So it's only been in place for like 3 years at this point. Now, on the flip side of it, for anybody involved in operations and maintenance, this is probably a good thing. But again, setting aside the repowering question for now, and again, as we record, there's no final language to this bill and this law. It hasn't been signed into law yet, so all we can do is kind of speculate on it. And assuming that they're going to change the immediate, as Alan said, this 60-day, window to start digging for your project, assuming they're going to kill that bit of it, which is likely, because that's just too fast of a ramp down. What this bill is potentially good for, despite the fact that we might be losing a production tax credit and investment tax credits, it will spur more companies to try and accelerate their plans for repowering and or life extension.
I want to pause here, take a quick break, because I want to come back. I want to talk about how much power production the U.S. needs to add every year and what the breakdown is, and what it's likely to be, and why changing these production tax credits and all the existing IRA bill matters in the growth of the power network in the United States. Don't let blade damage catch you off guard. Eelogic's ping sensors detect issues before they become expensive, time-consuming problems. From ice buildup and lightning strikes to pitch misalignment and internal blade cracks, Eelogic's ping has you covered. Their cutting-edge sensors are easy to install, giving you the power to stop damage before it's too late. Visit eelogix-ping.com and take control of your turbine's health today. All right, we're back. And I have been doing a good bit of research prior to this IRA bill change that's likely to happen to see what the power requirements are for the United States and what generally has been the growth. Because remember, during a recent conversation with Rosemary, we were talking about the growth of AI and how is that going to affect the amount of power usage. And Rosemary's opinion was it's not going to affect it that much. I'm still not sure about that based on the research I'm doing. But to give you some numbers here, the U.S. needs to add about 33 gigawatts of production every single year over the next 10 years, just to stay even with the growth of technology and electricity usage. Plus, as older facilities get turned off, you got to bring new ones on, right? Well, that creates kind of a little bit of a complex situation. So for the next 10 years, if you look at forget about 2025 for a minute, let's look at 2026 to 2035, right? The expected percentages of what will be added will be about 40 to 45% will be solar, right? So you're thinking about 120 to 150 gigawatts of solar. That's a tremendous amount of solar power that would have to be added to the grid just to stay even. So you're talking about 12 to 15 gigawatts per year. Wind will be about 6, roughly, gigawatts a year. Natural gas combined cycle will be about 6 gigawatts a year. Nuclear will be about 1.5 to maybe 2. And then battery storage, which is going to even out the duck curve, is going to be around maybe 5 or 6 gigawatts. Changing the IRA bill and changing the incentives here is really going to affect the ability of the United States to keep up with the electricity demand and the ramp down of old generation sites. You're starting to see a little bit of noise from Silicon Valley and other places in the United States. Like, is this smart? I understand what the House is trying to do and trying to lower the deficit. I got it. I'm not sure this is going to help with that.
I'll give you some. This is direct feedback here from the last week, talking to the majority of the, and I'm going to say renewables industry from ACP, talking to ISPs, major big ISPs, some of the big 3, 4, 5 in the country. Multiple people telling me every meeting they walked into, hey, do you guys also do solar? Do you also do solar maintenance? Do you also do solar operations? Because people are shifting that way. And if you look at what the installed capacity has been, the growth in the last few years, you've seen solar start to kind of take off at a steeper hockey stick than wind because it's quick. And that's the thing about this, right? So if the demand is growing as fast as we see it growing, the only things you can put in the ground fast are solar, wind, and batteries. You can't put gas in fast. You can't put if we try to put a nuclear plant in right now anywhere in the country, it's going to be 2035 before we get first power out of it anyways, or 2034, whatever it may be. But it's down the line like this. That's not going to happen. So if you're going to introduce legislation to curtail or to just really kind of stomp on the ability for greenfield renewables, it's the only thing we can build fast enough to keep up with demand. So we're going to end up with rolling brownouts. Like, get your generators.
And keep in mind that the small modular reactor that GE Vernova is developing, that has been proposed for the TVA site in Tennessee, that's only just getting started and is, not likely to come online very soon. You've got a 4-year backlog of gas turbines at GE Vernova, and I didn't read it this morning, by the way, so I don't know if they actually extended that backlog when they reported their numbers. But you've got a similar situation with Siemens as well with their gas turbines. At least a 3-year backlog. And so where are you getting the power from? I mean, presumably those, all these gas turbines are going to be, put in place for projects that have already been approved and consented. But again, you're not addressing that immediate concern of demand growth with the immediacy of being able to deploy something like solar, wind, or batteries that's going to address that demand growth quicker than what you're going to get out of any other form of power generation.
So here's an interesting thought process, right? We have these interconnection queues with renewables stacked up in them 10 miles long, right? And all of a sudden, if they're going to lose the capability of putting PTCs, if they don't have shovel ready, like in the oil and gas world, some of these contracts used to be written like you go park a bulldozer on this land and it extends your lease and extends your that was the way that some of these were written. I don't know if wind is that way or if you've got to have components on site or you got to be digging dirt or something. I don't know how the contracts work to secure those PTCs. However, if we get to the point where we have a few years of desert for PTCs, what I would expect then is the next step is when we get these greenfield developments pushed into the interconnect and they're going to connect them anyways, then the power prices to the consumer are going to double. Or they're going to at least have to go up enough to cover what PTC was, which is basically in most of the United States, your power price is going to double. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Alan, what do you think about that? Does that make sense?
I don't know if it's going to double, but it's going to go up 15, 20%, I think, easily. because they're going to have to add the generation capacity, regardless if there's tax credits or not. In order to keep from the brownouts from happening, they will have to add generation. In order to do that, you have to pay for it. In order to do that, basically incentivize companies to start putting generation out there, they're going to have to pay them extra, more than they are right now, to go out there and develop, or they won't do it. So that's going to be in a real bind, and then the demand's going to get greater than the supply, and then the prices are obviously going to go up.
Like we're against physics here. Like you just can't change some of these things. You can say drill baby drill, we want to be the biggest gas and oil producer, whatever. That's great, but we don't have the turbines to burn the stuff to make power out of it. So like, cool, and gas is going to be cheap for your car, great, but like it's not going to go into the power grid because we don't have the stations to transform it into electrons.
No, we don't, and we won't. Which I think when the Senate gets this bill, there's going to be a lot of discussion about that, because senators are like cats. They're all just going each in their own independent direction. The House, you can gather them together and get them all to vote as a block, which obviously has happened over the last 20 years or so. But the Senate kind of moves around a good bit. So one senator can change everything, or a handful of senators, 2 or 3 actually can change everything here. It's not good for the growth of the power industry in the United States. And I wonder if the desire to reduce deficits is not going to have a good effect on the growth of the economy of the United States. It's a very weird development. It seems like things are done at the last second, right? To me, just reading the news, like nothing. Oh my gosh, we got to get rid of the production tax credit. Oh my gosh, the deficit is overwhelming. We got to kill all the solar and wind. How do those things go together? I don't know. But hey, you want higher electricity prices, you're going to get it. And it's inevitable. It's inevitable. We just moved from Massachusetts to North Carolina. Massachusetts electricity rates are practically double almost of what they are in North Carolina. There you go. And we live next to a nuclear power generation station, just down the street. So yeah, I get it.
So Alan, just so we're clear, like watch for extra fingers and stuff, because when they start to sprout, you might want to move again.
I have to say the nuclear facility as near us has been run really well. It's a pride and joy of the area, actually.
As busy wind energy professionals, staying informed is crucial. And let's face it, difficult. That's why the Uptime Podcast recommends PES Wind magazine. PES Wind offers a diverse range of in-depth articles and expert insights that dive into the most pressing issues facing our energy future. Whether you're an industry veteran or new to wind, PES Wind has the high-quality content you need. Don't miss out. Visit peswind.com today.
Phil, do you remember about, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, where there was concern about Chinese manufactured equipment having the capability of being shut off remotely or controlled remotely from China? And one of the executives, one of the Chinese manufacturers said, hey, check our equipment. There's nothing there. And, well, somebody did. The U.S. Department of Energy did, yeah. And so have some European countries, actually. So there's been a lot of investigation about this. And it turns out, and this is early days because there's not a lot of detail, that there has been found to be undisclosed communication devices in some of these inverters that are used in solar panels and wind turbines. And it has caused a bunch of problems because obviously there's China and Europe and the United States are not necessarily friendly with one another, and there's a surveillance aspect. And the concern has always been that if China can flip a switch and shut off the European grid or shut off the United States grid, that's a huge national security problem. And if they did find communication devices in inverters, there have to be some circuitry, there have to be some components there that shouldn't be there. Wow. Just wow. I don't even know where they go next, Phil. What do you do next?
So let's take a step back and make sure we all understand what we're talking about here. So in some of the energy storage devices and in the converters themselves, what they've done in the battery management systems for energy storage and the inverters for solar and batteries and a little bit of wind, they found basically cellular modems. So you've got this situation where they can, make a demand of their domestic companies to say, hey, let's use this remote capability to, turn something off. As you said, the national security implication of that alone is enough to get people thinking, all right, maybe we shouldn't be, so dependent on a Chinese supply chain. And what it means now from a practical standpoint is that if we and the Europeans start mandating that every single one of these things gets inspected during customs inspections to ensure that there's no, listening device or spying device or cellular modem or whatever else that's not supposed to be there. If anything's in there that shouldn't, okay, even if we make the Chinese pay the cost of doing those inspections, we'll do the inspections, but we basically it's in addition to tariffs that we're already surcharging them with, there's going to be another surcharge for inspections. Now it's just eroded the entire cost benefit of sourcing anything from China.
To me, this is surprising that it's taken this long to figure some of this out, to find this out, to discover this, because at the end of the day, if anything's being transmitted, it's RF, right? That's pretty easy to scan for. Like, you can buy an RF scanner on Amazon. Like, that's not a big deal. And to the level of security that we deal with. So when Alan and I are talking to any operator in the States anymore about when we're putting strike tape on, right? If we're fixing their lightning problems, we're also monitoring with it, and it's simple IoT devices to monitor for lightning strikes. Great, right? Everybody's happy, but then the engineers always go, "Oh, we got to go through the cybersecurity stuff." Fine, we're armed to the teeth with all the information to make sure that this passes muster IoT wise. So we don't have an issue with it. But some of the questionnaires that we see come out of these operators, pages upon pages upon pages of cybersecurity questions. So how is it that some of these major components have snuck by at this time and we haven't heard of this yet? Like, why is it something that's just popping up now? That, to me, is surprising, specifically with the level of, gigawatts, the level of components installed in the United States. I mean, we're talking, what are we up to now? 75 and change thousand turbines?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can't count how many solar panels and inverters are out there.
In the tens of thousands.
Yeah, Joel, it's a really good point. What is the United States and Europe going to do? Are they going to go back through and figure out what inverters have these?
Man, I don't. So but that's the other thing too, right? If the RF isn't actively transmitting, how are you going to do this? This is an impossible. This is a damn near impossible needle in a needle stack like thing, right?
There are ways to do it, to make it think it needs to come alive and start talking. And my guess is that's how they're going to figure out where these devices are, is to try to turn them on and see if they'll talk. But wow, can you imagine the pain in the rear that's going to be involved in ripping out all these inverters and replacing them with some European or, God forbid, American-made product? Because there's not a lot of American-made inverters. It's mostly like ABB, right? It's going to be over in Europe.
And to be clear, it's not that they're bad, Alan. It's that they're expensive.
They make high-quality inverters. It's just that if you think about it, if you're an ABB, let's use ABB as an example. If you're ABB and you know that there's going to be, 25,000 inverters are going to have to be pulled in the next 6 months, you can't ramp up production fast enough to fill that order, even though you would love to. And every salesperson who works for ABB would love to have that commission check, but you just can't do it. So what do? Do you have to shut down the field?
One by one, I guess. You got to go kind of just start going through things.
Well, if you're an inverter technician, great job.
Here's a business model for an ISP. Start advertising that you can scan for these things. Figure out how.
Oh, man, what a mess. And speaking of messes, when Joel was in Phoenix, Phil, you were in Phoenix too for a little bit, right?
Yes, I was, and I was able to get into the show floor, but I did not see what you're about to talk about.
Well, you missed a good one, because wind turbine equipment manufacturer 3S America has filed a patent infringement suit against Cooper New Energy in Arizona federal court. And the lawsuit alleges that Cooper's free climber lifter product infringes on 3S's patent for traction machine and lifting equipment technology. And it really centers around that Cooper was at Clean Power showing the device that looks very similar to the Climb Auto system, from what I can tell in the lawsuit paperwork that was filed. I mean, it looks really similar. And 3S Lift said, hey, there's a patent infringement going on here. We are going to shut you down while you're at Clean Power. Wow. That's major. They must have had an indication that Cooper was going to be at Clean Power. But wow.
So let me help dissect this a little, because what happens with situations like this is you may have a Chinese company that's copied something from another company, and even though there may be patents in China as well, when they go into a more litigious market like the United States or the UK, or even elsewhere in Europe, or Brazil for that matter, you're likely to face a lot more scrutiny. The way this worked out is on or before the show opened on Monday, Cooper imports this supposedly infringing technology. They, as they're doing their booth setup and all that, somebody from 3S Lift is also doing their booth setup, and they just walk over and take some pictures. And by Tuesday morning, so this show started on Monday, by Tuesday morning, they had this complaint filed in the Federal District Court in Arizona. So 3S Lift is not screwing around. And the point I'm trying to make with that is twofold. One, they're trying to get ahead of Cooper coming into the U.S. market and undercutting them on the sales of auto climb and climb assist systems. And second, it underscores why you need to, well, I mean, not to put it into sounding too much like a commercial, but it's why you need to work with a company like ours that does IP risk certification. This is exactly what we can prevent.
When you look at I mean, it's a full-on lawsuit filed in one day. This wasn't done in one day. 3S knew this was coming, and they waited until Clean Power and went, gotcha. That's what happened. And it was, to be honest with you, whether they get an injunction or not, this wave, this big red flag, that's going to stop people from buying from that company. Whether legally they get forced to or not. Like, if you're operator XYZ, you're going to buy a 3S Lift instead. Sorry, that's what's going to happen.
Well, you should buy a 3S Lift because those things are awesome.
It's a good product. Yeah.
The technicians love those things. Yeah.
Well, why do you think somebody wants to copy it? Exactly.
That one's hard to copy because they have so much technology built into those climb auto systems. This was, obviously Cooper's going to say they didn't infringe, and it needs to get adjudicated, and I'm sure that it will because it's in 3S's. It's 3S's right to go do it, so they're going to go do it, and they're going to try to get an injunction. And I'm surprised I haven't seen more of it. And as we are discussing here, the role of Chinese manufacturers, it's a touchy subject, right? There's a lot going on in that space at the moment. And this week has been, in my opinion, one of the busiest wind energy weeks of all time, at least the United States. Hopefully things are calmer in Europe than they are in the United States right now. It has been, I can't keep up with it anymore. It's really in the morning, in the afternoon, I'm checking the news. There's always something else that's happened. Like, my gosh, how do you even manage this? If you're running an operator right now, or an ISP, or even some of the investment companies that are involved in solar and wind, whoa, this week has just reset everything.
I got to tell you some more. I'm going to touch on ACP again. To me, to be honest with you, it sounded like a lot of people tried to almost put their heads in the sand about what was going on. IRA. It's like they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear that bad news. They didn't want to, like, people were like, oh man, this morning, like, did you hear about that? Like, yeah. And then people didn't want to talk about it. And on the other side, I was looking at some people when the stop work order got lifted for Empire Wind, Orsted stock jumped 20%, Vestas stock jumped like 14%, and then you get this bill this morning, and all of a sudden, boom, boom. It's like, oh, if you're an investor looking at renewable energy companies, holy volatility, you know? So the whole industry is just kind of reeling.
Yeah, that's not specific to wind.
True, but there is an American clean power aspect to this, and it doesn't feel good right now. I think a lot of operators are upset about what happened with the IRA bill and then what's happening now, and has there been leadership in Washington, D.C. to provide guidance? Because the words I have seen in the last 48 hours don't move the needle. You need to be moving the needle. And I'm not sure what the lobbying is at the moment, but it doesn't feel like it's having any impact at all, which makes everybody involved with American Clean Power take pause. And I'm sure there's a lot of loud phone calls at the minute. Well, that's enough for this week because I pretty much can't take any more. I don't want to, it's just depressing enough at the moment. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. We're going to figure this thing out. Maybe it's a paradigm shift. Maybe it's a temporary blip. It's hard to tell right now. I think it's too early to get a sense of where this is headed. But keep listening to the Uptime Wind Energy podcast. We're going to bring you the latest news, and we're going to suss through it so you don't have to. So we'll be here next week, hopefully with some better news. I'm Alan Hall. I'm here with Joel Saxum and Phil Totaro. We'll see you next week.